Qapla all. In this video I'm going to list my top 5 Star Trek the Original Series episodes of all time. Anti-Trekker released his own video a little while back, link in the description, and invited the rest of the nerd community to do the same. Narrowing down to my 5 favorites turned out to be an impossible task for me, and even the ones I do list are basically all so close together that on any given day, the exact order of the list can change. That said, I worked hard to narrow down to what are actually my 6 favorite episodes of all time. Sorry I couldn't decide on just 5.
An emotional earth weakness of mine.
There were also numerous honorable mentions. It was not intentional, but I notice now that none of my top 6 match Anti-Trekker's top 5. I'm not saying his top 5 aren't great episodes. They just didn't make my best of the best. So let me start with honorable mentions. These are in no particular order, and I really could make the argument for any of these to be a top episode. 2 of my favorite episodes of the original series are episodes where they go back in time to the 1960s. So both Tomorrow is Yesterday, where a black star accidentally sends the Enterprise back in time, and Assignment Earth, where they purposely use the time warp we next see used in Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, are big favorites. Then there's Mudd's Women, which always brought a smile to my face. Yeah, that's it. And of course there's Balance of Terror, which is Anti-Trekker's favorite episode, even if
they are without honor.
Sadly, like Anti-Trekker, I also couldn't put Space Seed in my top 5 or even 6, but not for the same reasons he mentioned. I simply prefer the other ones on my list. I wish I could have fit in the Omega Glory, if only for the Space Alien Americans. How did that happen?
Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words proudly saying, "We the people."
Errand of Mercy, where we learn about the Klingons. Journey to Babel, which is absolute proof Star Trek Discovery is not part of the TOS timeline. I'm going to do a video on this soon. Stay tuned. Amok Time, Court Martial, A Taste of Armageddon, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, and Bread and Circuses, the Modern Rome episode, are all episodes I couldn't not mention in this video. So let's get to it. As I stated earlier, I couldn't decide on just 5, so consider these first 2 tied for 5th place. Number 6 is a piece of the action. Who can forget this episode where Kirk and company beam down to a planet run by the mob, complete with drive-bys and local family bosses? I appreciated how the writers used the term heaters when the mob people were talking about phasers, since they'd have no idea what a phaser is.
So this is a fancy heater, huh? How's it work?
It probably isn't intentional, but it also tells a decent story on deal-making and negotiation. That is to say, if you start off weak, your opponent will consider you weak. But if you talk as if you are in the superior position, as Kirk finally does towards the end, the other side may well capitulate, even though little has actually changed. I know this is a Star Trek video, but Futurama explains it best.
If you come in peace, surrender or be destroyed. If you're here to make war, we surrender.
Both good. The important thing is I'm meeting new people.
Also, we learn the rules to Fizbin.
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 Fizbin. It's not too difficult. Each player gets 6 cards, except for the dealer, the player on the dealer's right, who gets 7.
On the right.
Yes. The second card is turned up, except on Tuesdays.
On Tuesday.
Number 5, YouTube isn't going to like, but I can't not put this in my top 5. Patterns of Force, aka the Nazi episode.
You're right. He's not one of us. What do you mean? Look at him. Spock, take his uniform.
You propose we pass ourselves off as Nazis, Captain?
If John Gill is the Fuhrer, it would seem the logical approach.
That's very well taken, Captain.
So many great quotes and great memorable scenes. But most important, it leaves us with this lesson.
The problem with the Nazis wasn't simply that their leaders were evil, psychotic men. They were. But the main problem, I think, was the leader principle.
What he's saying, Spock, is that a man who holds that much power, even with the best intentions, just can't resist the urge to play God.
Thank you, Doctor. I was able to gather the meaning.
And as long as I've already said the word, I can't leave out this.
Your uniform, Captain.
Yes, it's a shame yours isn't as attractive as mine. Gestapo, I believe.
Quite correct. You should make a very convincing Nazi.
I'd love to talk more about this episode, but I'm already pressing my luck with the algorithm. For number 4, there may be no episode more iconic than Mirror Mirror. Whether a Star Trek fan or not, it has entered pop culture that if your twin has a goatee, they're evil. Even if Mirror Spock was the only person with a beard in the Mirror universe, and he was the only one not actually evil in the end. Weird now that I think about it. The Mirror universe has given us a great avenue for storytelling beyond the original series, and even beyond Star Trek as a whole.
And then I showed up at the bus stop, and this son of a bitch is standing there. I'm sorry, I've caused so much trouble. This is all very strange to me, too.
Exactly what do you remember?
Well, I was just standing around, and Stan and Carl were being really mean as usual, and Kenny had just bought a new car.
Of course, that's it.
What?
Don't you see, children? This Codman is from an evil parallel universe where everything exists as its opposite.
He's my evil twin? But he doesn't even look that much like me.
However, in true Mirror fashion, it was also the catalyst for some of the worst Trek.
I'll do one more jump. Only one more jump.
Computer is reading it as an incomplete navigation sequence.
Captain, I'm afraid I don't know where we are.
I can honestly say I've never not watched Mirror Mirror anytime I've seen it playing on TV, so it definitely belongs in the top of the top in my opinion. Number 3, and remember, don't get hung up on the order. On any given day, my top 5 or 6 could easily be shuffled. But number 3 for today is City on the Edge of Forever, an episode I would bet many people consider to be the best TOS episode. This episode introduces us to the mysterious Guardian of Forever, which is perhaps the most fondly remembered hole in a rock ever put on network television.
And what is it?
A question.
The Guardian represented unparalleled power and knowledge.
Since before your sun burned hot in space, and before your race was born, I have awaited a question.
What are you?
I am the Guardian of Forever.
It also gave us one of Captain Kirk's truest loves, and a very emotional end.
I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did?
He knows, Doctor. He knows.
It showed us how one person can drastically affect future events. Perhaps even more disturbing, but no less true, is also the lesson that sometimes war is necessary for a future of peace and prosperity.
This is how history went. Dr. McCoy changed it. Here, in the late 1930s, a growing pacifist movement whose influence delayed the United States entry into the Second World War. While peace negotiations dragged on, Germany had time to complete its heavy water experiments. Germany.
Fascism won the Second World War.
Because all this, let's then develop the A-bomb first.
Number 2 is The Trouble with Tribbles, perhaps the most fun episode in all of Trek. The Trouble with Tribbles shows us bureaucracy is alive and well in the 23rd century.
How did you issue a priority 1 distress call?
That was my order, Captain.
Captain Kirk, this is Niels Barris. He's out from Earth to take charge of the development project for Sherman's planet.
And that gives you the authority to put an entire quadrant on defense alert?
Mr. Barris is the Federation Undersecretary in charge of agricultural affairs in this quadrant.
And that gives him the authority.
We also get Klingons, a D7, and the most memorable and entertaining bar fight in all of the franchise. If you don't at least smile when Kirk asks Scotty why he hit the Klingon first, and Scotty admits that it wasn't when the Klingon insulted Kirk, but when he insulted the ship, well, you just may be a green-blooded Vulcan.
What was it they said that started the fight?
They called the Enterprise a garbage scow. Sir.
I see.
And of course we can't forget the Tribbles.
Most curious creature, Captain. Its trilling seems to have a tranquilizing effect on the human nervous system. Fortunately, of course, I am immune to its
Likely the most popular pet in all of Star Trek. Sorry, Porthos. Not only is The Trouble with Tribbles one of the funniest episodes of Trek, but it gives us one of the best and funniest episodes of Deep Space Nine, being the groundwork for Trials and Tribulations decades later.
Tech 7. Let's see if we can find out what's going on. Cisco to Defiant. Cisco to Defiant.
And in the number one spot, I have to put the Enterprise incident. For those who don't know, and I include this only because I rarely see people mention this as their favorite episode, this is an episode where Kirk is ordered by Starfleet to steal a Romulan cloaking device. Further, because of the sensitive nature of the mission, and the fact Starfleet will knowingly violate the Romulan neutral zone, Kirk can't reveal the plans to the rest of the crew. He needs to pretend like he has gone rogue, so if anything goes wrong, Starfleet can and will deny this was a sanctioned mission, even though it absolutely was.
I say now, and for the record, that Captain Kirk ordered the Enterprise across the neutral zone on his own initiative and his craving for glory. I'll kill you! He is not sane.
A similar mission caused Captain Picard to be tortured by Cardassians a century later. Good thing Kirk didn't get caught. This is also the episode where we learn Romulans have been using ships of Klingon design. This is because the model for the Romulan bird of prey was severely damaged. It may have been intentional or accidental, depending who you believe. So in the original airing, it has 3 Klingon D7s filling in as Romulan ships. But when TOS got its HD upgrade, and the scenes were re-rendered with CGI, they changed one of the ships back to a Romulan bird of prey to be closer to the intended story. Much like Deep Space Nine's In a Pale Moonlight, this episode shows the darker side of Starfleet. Despite what we are often led to believe, Starfleet doesn't always have the moral high ground. They do sometimes let the ends justify the means, and even harder to accept, they are clearly willing to lie when the lie suits them better.
What is your mission here?
Instrument failure caused navigational error. We were across the neutral zone before we realized it. Then we were surrounded by your ships before we could get back.
Had Section 31 existed to the 1960s writers, this would most certainly have been a Section 31 episode. Besides the duplicity, we get amazing performances by Kirk, Spock, and the Romulan commander played brilliantly by Joanne Linville, who is criminally never given a name in the episode. But she is one of the all-time most powerful women in Star Trek, and she wields that power as a woman, not as a woman acting like a man, but with 100% of her femininity intact, and that is something sorely lacking in TV and movies today. So these have been my top 6 episodes. Like Anti-Trekker, I invite others to share their favorite TOS episodes. In time, I will also release my bottom 5 TOS episodes, and then top 5 and bottom 5 for TNG, and so on in that manner for Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, and even eventually the Orville. What are your favorites? Please tell me in the comments below. And if you make your own video, please put it as a link in its own comment. It may get marked as spam, but I will approve it once I notice it. Of course, what I truly hope is that if you've never seen the original series, you give it a try. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, watch again to recapture the magic that has been lost in modern storytelling. There is something very special about the original Star Trek, and the best way to understand it is by watching. You can find the original series on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Apple TV, and CBS All Access, not to mention reruns on various channels across the world. It's amazing to think about, but this 50-year-old TV show might literally be the easiest TV show to watch today, and I think that says it all. Thank you all for watching my video. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. Without it, you won't get notifications of new videos. Check out BirdOPrey5.com, the new home of everything BirdOPrey5 on the web. You can also check out my forum at juot.net. I'm also on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Gab. If you'd like to make a donation, check out paypal.me/BirdOPrey5 or on BirdOPrey5.com. Take care.